am so excited to have Bob Berg here, of all people. I know many of us have read his book, okay, The Go Givers, okay, and which was co-authored by John David Mann, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and give. Hi, Harriet C. I'm gonna go ahead and introduce Bob, okay. Bob has more than 30 years um, successfully showing entrepreneurs, leaders, and sales professionals how to build relationships, communicate their value, and accelerate their business growth. Although for years he has been known for his sales classic, Endless Referrals, it's his business parable, The Go Giver, co-authored by John David Mann, has created a worldwide movement. While part of a four-part series, The Go-Giver itself has sold over 1 million copies and been translated into 30 languages. It was rated number 10 on Inc. magazine, listed of the most motivational books ever written, and was on the HubSpot 20 most highly rated sales books of all time. Bob is the creator of the Go Giver Academy online learning portal, featuring the Go Giver Successful Vault, which includes all of his online courses as well as additional business building resources. He also publishes the very popular Daily Impact email. Both of these can be accessed at his website, which is berg.com. Bob is an advocate and supporter and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. He is also unapologetic animal fanatic and serves as part of the South Florida Rescue, Foster, and Adoption organization. Thank you so much, Bob, for agreeing to, first of all, meet with me to have a conversation and then agreeing to come on to talk about your work.
Oh, my pleasure, Margaret. It's great to be with you. It's an honor. You're a delightful human being.
Well, thank you so much. You too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. So I
I'm
know.
applauding you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much. So I know you have limited time, so I want to get right into it. So can you tell us, about your work and what brought you to Substack?
Well, Substack, I had just started to see so many people whose work I admired had moved over there. So, we had been on a platform that was a little bit difficult at times to navigate. And so we just decided to make that switch. And so Kathy Tajanel, who's my de facto business partner and really so great technically, because as you know, I'm not. That's not my strength, but hers is.
Okay.
And she was able to navigate that move over. So I think we started the first week of January.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, we've enjoyed it.
Great. And
And
we've
I got to
enjoyed.
meet you. I might not have gotten to meet you if it wasn't for Substack. So there you go.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I told you I have your book on my Kindle. And when I see, I like, oh my God, it's just like I gotta reach out to you. If you say
Mhm.
no, that's okay. As in sales, we know we get many no's before we
That's
get the
right.
first yes. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So you want to talk to us about your leadership journey with how you came about writing the book?
Well, back in the 90s, I had my first book came out called Endless Referrals. And the subtitle was Networker Everyday Contacts into Sales. It was basically a book on business networking. And it was written for entrepreneurs and salespeople who knew they had a great product or service. They knew it brought a lot of value to those they served, but they didn't necessarily have the confidence uh, to go out into their local areas and develop the kind of relationships with people that would cause people to want to do business with them directly and or refer them to others. So endless referrals was really, it was a how to a how-to guide for doing that. The basic premise was that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And that's always sort of been my um, core idea, if you will, in terms of business. Uh, but it was a how-to book, and I'd always enjoyed reading business parables, which I'd read since I'd begun in sales years before. But I'm not a parable writer. That's different from writing a how-to book. And so I kind of sat on the idea while thinking, maybe one day that will happen. So I in the early 2000s, I was writing a monthly column for a magazine, and the editor in chief was John David Mann. And even back then, although he was not as widely known, within his niche, he was very well known and very highly respected as a genius and great guy, and everything that you, and so after probably about 6 months of his editing my articles and developing a relationship with him, I just took it to him one day and just say, "Hey, John, I have this idea for a book. It's a story. It'd be a parable, and I'd love you to be the lead writer and the author." Well, he was still busy, very busy back then. So as he tells the story, he said to his fiance Anna, now his lovely wife, but he said to her, "Anna, I'm really too busy to do anything, but like this, but it's Bob. How can I not at least hear him out?" And so, you think about it, that's where the relationship comes in, right? That no like
Yes.
and trust was there, and that opened up a door at least for him to listen. So he and Anna were visiting her mom I live in in Jupiter, Florida, near West Palm Beach, which is on the Gulf, on the Atlantic. His Anna's mom lived on the West Coast, the Gulf Coast. So one afternoon, John and Anna took like a 4-hour drive. We had about a 3-hour dinner and discussed what the book would be about and what we would like it to accomplish, and so forth and so on. And it still was another 3 weeks before he got back to me and said, "Anna and I have been discussing it, and yeah, we think it's a good idea. Let's do this." And I'm thinking, yes, because I knew John, could just, and so it really only took a few months to write. The tough part was finding a publisher, because our agent, who's a wonderful, wonderful agent, it still took her a year and 24 no's. You were talking about no's, what we face in sales, right? We got
Right.
24 no's before the 25th publisher, Portfolio Books, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House, said yes. So, so it was still a matter of, you had to sell an idea. We knew it was a good idea, but we still had to sell it and be willing to get a lot of no's. One of my favorite books, which is also a business parable, and it came out a couple of years after The Go-Giver. It's called Go for No, by my friends Andrea Waltz and Richard Fenton. They're a husband and wife. And their subtitle is "Yes is the destination, no is how you get there." And their website is Go for No, Go the number four. It's GOFORNO.com. And their book is, to me, it's genius, because what it does is it reframes the concept of no. It doesn't mean you like the no's. It doesn't mean you feel great when someone says no. That's not human nature, and that's not realistic. That's not, reality. But you're able to reframe it so that you have the no's working for you, not against you.
I love that, Bob. Can you talk us through the 5 laws that will bring you both personal effectiveness and professional success?
Sure. The 5 laws in the book, and by the way, just as as a thought, the basic premise of the Go-Giver is simply this: it's that shifting your focus. And Margaret, I think this is really where it all begins: shifting your focus from getting to giving. Now, when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's also the most financially profitable way as well. And not for any kind of, way out there magical mystical type of reason. No, not at all. It's actually very rational. And again, taps into human nature. When you think about it, when you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and place it on serving others, discovering their needs, their wants, their desires, helping solve and help them solve their problems, right? Moving them closer to happiness, people feel good about you. They feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They want you in their world. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you. But here's the thing. They also want to tell the world about you, right? They want to be your personal walking ambassador. So that's really what it's about. Now, as you said, there are 5 what we call laws, laws of stratospheric success. Basically, they're principles. Nothing that John and I made up. I mean, these were, but they're principles. They've been around forever, right? But we name them the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. The law of value, which says your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment, doesn't mean you don't make a profit. You make a great profit. But what it means is the buyer's experience, not just intrinsically through your product or service, but everything you do for them in the process, right? How you make them feel and what they're, right? They're receiving much more in value than what they paid for, while you also make a healthy profit. And this is one reason, by the way, why John and I, in our follow-up book to that, Go Givers Sell More, we say, and John coined this saying, and that is that money is simply an echo of value, right? It's the thunder to value's lightning. So the focus must be, right? That's that shift in focus. The focus must be on the value you're providing another human being. The money you receive is a natural result of that value. So that's basically the law of value. Now, the law of compensation says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number 1 says give more in value than you take in payment, law number 2 tells us the more people whose lives you touch with the exceptional value you provide, the more money with which you'll be rewarded. Law number 3, the law of influence, says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place the other person's interests first. Now, not in a self-sacrificial way, not in a martyrish way, not in a doormatty way. It's simply understanding, as we talked about earlier, that, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Well, here's the thing. There's no faster, more powerful, more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely moving from that I focus or me focus to that other focus. Looking to, as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, make your win all about the other person's win. Okay. So everyone advances in the process. Now, law number 4, the law of authenticity, says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And in this part of the story, one of the mentors, Deborah, shared that, all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are indeed all very, very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core, right? But when you do, when you show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people not only feel good about you, they feel comfortable with you, they feel safe with you. Why? Because they know who they're getting. And again, it's an element of human nature. We want to feel as though we understand what is in front of we want to understand our world, basically, is what it comes down to. So in order to inspire and maintain trust, we've got to be consistent, and that's part of authenticity. Now, that said, I just want to share something, a thought, if I may.
Please.
I think that authenticity, and maybe since this began with the with social media years ago, but it seems almost like authenticity has sort of become synonymous with just, no boundaries, just say, do whatever you want, use whatever language or insult or whatever, because, well, it's you. And so it's authentic. And that's, I respectfully disagree with that. That would be
Okay.
like the person who says, well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me. No, I think that more means that this person has an authentic problem that they need to authentically work on in order to become a better, higher, more effective, authentic version of themselves. So, when we talk about authenticity, John and I are really defining that as um, just acting congruently with your values, right? And I think if we do that, then and if a high value of yours is to speak respectfully to people, then yeah, you're going to say the truth, you're going to speak the truth, but you're also going to be tactful and kind, right? You're going to be encouraging rather than discourage, right? And so that's
Right.
really. And then law number 5 is the law of receptivity. And Margaret, this one simply says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. And this means nothing more than understanding that, yeah, you breathe out, you also have to breathe in. It's not one or the other. It's both. You breathe out carbon dioxide, you breathe in oxygen. You breathe out, which is giving, you breathe in, which is receiving. Giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. They're simply two sides of the very same coin. Now, unfortunately, the world around us does not give us that message very often. The world around us gives us a very anti-prosperity, anti-abundance, anti-money, anti-business kind of message, right? So you think that, anybody who does well did it on the backs of others or did it by taking advantage. Well, it's a big world. There's people who do bad things. But 99% of the time, especially if you're working within a basic free market system where no one's forced to do business with anyone else, the only reason someone's going to do business with you is because you're providing them exceptional value. Otherwise, why would they bother? So if you really
Exactly.
want to make a lot of money, find a way to provide a lot of value to a lot of people, right? And so,
Right.
that's something that we try to really put across that it's what business, it's what entrepreneurship is all about, and that is finding, a problem to solve, some value to add, make another person's life better, and if you can find a way to do that within the business framework, you're going to do very well financially. But you've got to be willing to receive it. And what happens is because of the many negative anti-prosperity messages, it's very unconscious that we hold these anti-prosperity thoughts. We don't even know that we're holding them. And that's why people will sabotage themselves. They'll either feel unworthy or they'll feel like, well, what will people think of me if I'm more? Does it mean that I did something wrong if I'm making a lot of money? So my suggestion, if I may, is
Please.
to make a study of prosperity and seek out and follow people like Randy Gage, like Sharon Lecter, Ellen Rogan. She's out of Chicago, and does a lot of work with women in finance and uh, prosperity thinking. David Nagel, Lisa Peterson. There's all these the late Bob Proctor, Ken Honda. There's all these people who have wonderful messages and blogs and videos on prosperity, and 99% of what they teach is getting past those mental blocks, those unconscious blocks from the prosperity that we deserve based on the value we provided. So indeed, make a study of prosperity. And that's a basic summary of the 5 laws. I hope that was helpful.
It was extremely helpful. I'm not sure how much time you have left. Um, so I wanted to
No,
see if
go ahead.
anybody. Oh, okay. Does anybody have any questions for Bob? This is an opportunity that may
Here,
not come again. Go
so
ahead.
here's a
Go
here's
ahead.
a suggestion, Margaret. The first question is always the toughest to get, right? Because people don't want to be. So let's do this. Does anybody have a second question? Because
Okay.
after the first question's asked, then we all have questions. We all feel much more comfortable, and the hands go up. So let's make believe someone's asked the first question, and we'll ask, does anybody have the second question? And then we can.
Well, there's a comment here.
Oh,
Carolina said it's always
oh,
a gift to listen to your words, Bob.
love Carolina. She's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not. It's difficult. Maybe because I'm a guy, I'm not sure, but I don't multitask well, so I'm not able to see. So let me go now that you pointed out the chat. Let me look and just see. Oh, all these good people have joined, and oh, thanks everybody. Yeah. Um, so let's bring up then a question that's often asked. Does being a go-giver mean that you're going to be taken advantage of? That's a question we often get. And I think that's because you hear a term like go-giver and you think, well, a giver, somebody who's going to be right, they're just going to give themselves and but really um that's not the case. There is nothing congruent between being a go-giver and being taken advantage of. Remember, being a go-giver simply means you focus on providing value to others. That's your focus. Now, does that mean you can't be taken advantage? No, anybody can be taken advantage of. But if you're a nice person, if you're a giving person, and you find yourself constantly as a pattern. I don't mean once in a while. We're all human. Someone, unless you never leave the house, you're going to get taken advantage of in your life one time or another. But if someone's in a pattern of being taken advantage of, please know, it's not because you're a good person. It's not because you're nice. It's not because you're a giving person. It's because you're doing things in a certain way that's creating the environment for people to take advantage of you. Okay. Now, if that's you, and I'm not saying it is, of course, but if that's you, and I'm not talking to you, Margaret, I'm to everybody who's there. I'm not saying it's anybody who's watching, but if it is, first, congratulations for recognizing it, because until we recognize an issue, there's nothing we can do to overcome it. Okay. So then you got to ask yourself the question, if this is a pattern for me, why? What is the payoff for me? Now, when I say payoff, I don't mean necessarily money, but payoff in terms of what do I get out of it? Now, also, it's not conscious. It's always the payoff is unconscious. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "Hey, I wonder who I can get to take advantage of me today." No, it's totally unconscious. But there's still a reason for it. There's a payoff. Now, it might be that, unfortunately, you were told, somehow communicated to you when you were younger or whatever, that you didn't deserve success, or that, whatever. And so your belief system is such that that is congruent with being taken advantage of. It's a shame, but it's got to be recognized before it can be dealt with. Okay. Or it might be that you've been brought up that, good people don't prosper. And so instead, you're going to be taken advantage of to prove to yourself you're a good person. Or it might be the attention you get. Oh, he or she is such a good person, but they're always being taken advantage of, the poor thing. And that's a form of attention. I'm not saying any of that holds to anyone here. I'm saying that there's always an unconscious reason for it. So what you need to do is check your premises when you see this happening. Why am I making a decision or saying yes when this is not something I feel I want to do or should do or is in my best interest to do, right? And you can
Yes.
also see a professional counselor to work through it, or you can get with a coach, what have you. But first recognize it. So there's nothing about being a go-giver that is naturally congruent with being taken advantage of. Joe just wrote, just an observation. Michelle wrote, super help. Thank you. Joe wrote, just an observation. I worked with animals for many years. They definitely only respond to authenticity. Oh, animals, as I like to say, they always know, don't they?
Yes, they do. Absolutely. Does anybody have any questions? I just wanted to ask again.
Okay, Joe just wrote, can it be that I accept lower paying work because I don't value myself? I believe I do because I value my time outside of work. Okay, so this is a great, 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 great question, and this opens up a few things. So there are two types of value that we as human beings possess. Okay, one is just intrinsic value, and that is just by nature of being here, we have great value. That everyone has that same value. okay, as human beings. But then there's also market value. I define market value as that combination of strengths, traits, talents, characteristics that allow one to provide value to the marketplace in such a way that they will be financially rewarded. Okay. Now, the chances are, Joe, and I don't know what you do, but the chances are you certainly are very high on that, in that category as well. But here's the thing, and this is again very human, because we tend to be, and it could be that we're naturally good at something or we've worked hard to develop a certain skill. It's usually a combination of both. But we're so used to it that we don't always recognize how valuable it is. And we tend to think, well, if I can do that, anybody can do that. And thus, we actually negate our own value when really what we have is something that's very valuable to that other person. What is value? Value is simply the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, right? The desire of another thing to another person. What is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to another human being that they will willingly exchange their money for it? So the first thing you've got to be able to do is understand why what you provide is of such value. What is it that you provide that, even aside from your product or service, that you're able to add such additional value that other people benefit greatly from that experience, the whole experience. Now, one of the things you can do is get with someone, whether it's a coach, whether you're in a group that, goes back and forth with each other, and ask other people what they see as your value. Because remember, as human beings, we're too close to ourselves. We're too emotionally involved with ourselves. Often we can't see the extreme value that we provide, right? But other people can. Also, and I learned this from my friend and colleague, Richard Wildman, author of the wonderful book, 100 Powerful Ways to Acquire and Keep Clients for Life. A great idea is to talk with, and don't do this just by email, but see if you can, have an appointment with this person in person, or Zoom, where you can see each other, and ask that person why it, and do this with your ambassadors, the people who just love you, who refer you, who keep coming back to you, and ask them what it is, why it is that they enjoy doing business with you. What benefits do they get from it? What do they feel is the most important? Because they'll tell you things that you may not even know about the value you provide. Remember, as human beings, we tend to feel that other people see things the same way we do, but it's not true. And so there's also, Joe said, okay, right, we get trained to believe we are easily replaceable, and it's not true. No. And so what happens if you think you're replaceable, then you see yourself as a commodity, right? And that's why I often say that when you sell on low price, you're a commodity. When you sell on high value, you're a resource. So you want to look for those ways that you're able to communicate that exceptional value. Now, again, Joe, without knowing what you do, a lot of this also, the communication of your value, it's not what you say about it. It's the questions you ask that other person. When you're in a sales conversation with someone, the discovery aspect is the most important part, because that's when you're asking the questions to determine, what do they need? What do they want? What do they desire? What problems do they have? Okay. And you're also able, when you do this, to kind of look at problems they don't even know they have, but that you can help them to see through your insights, or maybe advantages they have that they don't recognize. Because again, remember, they're too close to what they're doing, and you can help them to be able to leverage that. This is how you're able to really communicate your value. It's through what you ask more than what you say. Because, and my friend Jeff West, a great sales professional, and now a 4-time award-winning author, Jeff says, when you ask the right questions, eventually your prospect will tell you what they need to hear. They'll tell you what they need to hear. You're not telling them what they need to hear, which doesn't have as much oomph they're telling you what they need to hear.
Bob, we have another question here. Brandon wants to know, how do you know when to give away your services or when to restrict access to your value?
Yeah, Brandon, that's a great question. Here's the definitive answer. Okay, it depends. So it really depends on what you do, what you have, and what the use is of that value, your services to give away. So in other words, giving away a product or a service, or giving away a video, a free report, being a content creator, all those things, those are strategies, right? And when used properly, they're wonderful strategies. For example, when people go to our website, we give away a free chapter of the book. Why? Because we're a nice guy? No, because if they read a chapter and they like it, they're going to buy the book, right? So, right, you know what I'm saying? So there's nothing, what do you call it, altruistic about it. It's good. It's good marketing. If you're a content creator and you're giving, and you're doing a series of videos or posts as far as content, okay? You're doing, now you always need to be giving great value when you do it, but you're doing it so that this person will see how valuable it is, but they're also going to know that you're the person who's going to help them implement it. Okay, because it's one thing to get information, it's another thing to be able to implement that information. I hope that's something you need to decide. And again, you might do that with a business coach, or you might be able to just do it through trial and error. You might be able to, or you might be doing it successfully, right now. I hope that's helpful. Now, Joe wrote, as a therapist, I gave away so much it was hard to pay rent. Yeah, Joe, don't do that. that doesn't help you, and it doesn't help the people who you're not going to be able to help afterwards, because you can't pay your rent, you'll be out of business. So no, there's no reason for that, Joe. If the value, seriously, if the value you're providing is helpful to that person, they should be paying for it. You should be making a healthy profit. They win and you win. Okay. In any market-based exchange, there should be two profits: the buyer profits and the seller profits, because each of you come away better off afterwards than you were beforehand. This is also where the sabotage process comes in, based on the way the world teaches us about money. And a lot of therapists and coaches and people have this happen. You care so much, you believe so much in what you're doing, and you care so much about others that you kind of feel like money is an evil part of it. Like, I love this so much and I care about them so much, I shouldn't, I shouldn't be making money from it. Well, whoever said that you can only make money by doing things you dislike? Right? So start questioning the premises. It's beautiful when you have a product or service that you love and you have people who you want to help. It's beautiful. And to be able to make a great living as a result, that's beautiful. So again, start checking your premises and start, maybe subscribing to some of those people I mentioned who have this great information on prosperity mindset.
Wow, this has been amazing. Do you have any other golden nuggets of advice to share?
Nothing that comes to mind, but if anybody has any questions, I'm certainly happy to entertain them. I think we got a little time left.
Well, I know you talked about Drive by Mentor. Okay. You want to talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that?
Yeah, well, so that was something that was a term that came up in a conversation. I don't know if it was invented or not, but I was talking with one of my mentors. Her name is Dondi Scumaci. She's a brilliant leadership and team builder. Her website is Dondi Scumaci, DONDISCUMACI.com. And great, brilliant person, wonderful human being, and a terrific leader. And we were talking about, those times that you hear some information from someone that just happens to be, and it might be someone, and we called this a drive-by mentor. I'm pretty sure she thought of the term, because she usually comes up with those wonderful terms, drive-by mentor. So it would be someone who You may not know this person well or at all, or you may know them as a hi, how are you, but nothing. But they just happen to come into your life and provide you with a nugget of advice at the exact time that you needed it and were ready to receive it. And if you're keeping your ears, eyes, and mind open, it can make a huge difference. And it got brought up because I tell the story how when I had gotten into sales and I was a couple of years into sales and I had studied it and learned it was doing well, but I was in a real sales slump. And I started really focusing just on myself and getting out of the slump instead of focusing on my customers. So obviously that wasn't working well for anybody. And a guy at the company I was working, he wasn't in sales. I think he was in the engineering department. He was an older guy, and I think he retired soon after. I hardly knew him. He was one of these people, and I'm sure you've met people like this, who he didn't say a lot, but whenever he did say something, it was usually pretty profound. So he kind of saw what was happening with me, and I think he saw some potential in me, and he said, "Berg, can I give you some advice?" And I said, "Yeah, please do. I need it." And he said, "If you want to make a lot of money in sales," he said, "stop having making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target," he said, "you'll get a reward, and that reward will come in the form of money, and you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It's not the target itself. Your target is serving others." And I think that's when it really hit me, Margaret, that great salesmanship is never about the salesperson, right? It's actually never about the product or service, as important as that product or service is. It's just that's not what it's about. Great salesmanship is about the other person. It's about the person whose life you're trying to add value to, or we could even say it's about that person's life becoming just a little bit better just because you are part of it. And I think that when we approach sales, business, entrepreneurship from that foundational premise, I think then we're really 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game. And that was a drive-by mentor who I kind of got that from, and it changed everything for me.
Basically, Bob, what you're talking about, the laws of attraction are at work.
Well, I mean, I think that with what you do, um, you're attracting the right people based on who you are. In the book, Pindar, the main mentor, says givers attract, right? Sort of like a magnet. So people who, again, when we say givers, we mean focused on bringing value to others. And that doesn't mean just business. This is anywhere. This is being the first one to say hello. This is holding a door open for someone. It might be pouring someone's coffee like Joe did in the story. Okay. It might be, whatever it happens to be. There's a book, probably my favorite personal development book of all time. It was written by Michael A. Singer called Living Untethered. He's got several books out. His first was The Untethered Soul, which was very good, very popular. The Surrender Experiment, again, great. But his third book, Living Untethered, was the one that for me was a real breakthrough. But one of the phrases, and I have this actually on my computer, so I'm going to look up as I read this. Here's what he said that I think is so cool. He wrote, "The highest thing you could do with your life is to make it so that every moment that passes before you is better off because it did. That's the highest definition of the purpose of life, that every single moment, every person, every moment that happens to unfold in front of you is better off because it passed by you. It was raised a little." And I think when we can do that, we're always adding value to the world and we become a much more attractive person.
This is magical. I am so honored. Uh,
Oh, the honor's mine.
Joe says service is a privilege. Then you earn bank. All of a
Uh,
sudden, that
yeah.
that did happen to me. There you go, Joe.
All right, Joe.
This has been such an informative, heartfelt conversation, Bob. I am truly honored, really. I didn't know what you were going to say because I reached out to a number of people and I don't even get I hear crickets. So I keep knocking. You have to keep knocking at the door until it opens.
Yeah, well, that happens to me too. It happens to everyone, and I
Of
think when
course.
people do that and they make calls and they reach out to people and they don't hear anything back, they think, "Oh, I'm the only one that happens to." But no, it's everybody, and that's the world we live in. And again, it's reality. Most people, if they don't have a need, a perceived need for you right now, they don't answer or they don't. Some people do. Some people are very polite and nice and will say but others just don't. And so we've got to recognize that that's not about us. Okay.
No, it's not.
And
It's
it's
not.
not something we can control. All we can control is our actions. um Kat has one more question. Do we have time to take one more question?
If you have time.
Yeah, let's do it. She writes, what would you say is the best way for high achieving leaders to slow down long enough to recognize the value of coaching? So, Kat, I think like anything else, they need to see that there's a reason why it will be of benefit to them. Dale Carnegie taught us 90 years ago in his 1936 classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He wrote, and I think this was the underlying premise of everything he wrote in his book, which was a magnificent book. He said, ultimately, people do things for their reasons, not our reasons. So if this high achieving leader, is thinking, oh, yeah, well, I mean, I guess everything's fine. I don't really need, well, they're not going to, it doesn't matter, who you are or who anyone is, they're not going to take, long enough time. They're not going to take time to do something they don't feel is of value to them. So the biggest thing you need to do is to find a way. And again, it's typically if you're able to have a sales conversation with this person, it's through asking them the right questions so that they get to understand how, and this is so important, how they can be more effective through coaching. Okay, that it's not that they're doing anything wrong right now. It's not that they're not doing great right now. But what is it in their life that can be helped through coaching? Can they make more money? Can they build a bigger team? Will they have a better family situation? Are they doing great in terms of business, but they're nervous all the time? Which your coaching could help them with and create more happiness for them. So it always comes down to the questions that we ask. And again, as my friend Jeff West said, when you ask the right questions, the prospect will tell themselves what they need to hear. I hope that's helpful.
Joe had another, I don't know whether it was a comment or question. Prejudice happens too. How do we overcome that? I am a white, sort of pretty white woman, and I have gotten every job I applied for. That gives me guilt.
Well, so first, look at, and again, I don't know you, Joe, and I don't know the situation, but I would ask, how do you know that it's because you're pretty? Could it be because you're qualified and they see great value in you? I mean, so we don't, I don't know, and you may or may not know either, but the feeling of guilt probably doesn't serve you, and probably doesn't, serve anyone else. But I'd look at, would that did they hire you because, well, they thought you were going to bring value to the organization? Now, whether it had anything to do with looks, I don't. Again, I don't know because I don't know the situation. We do know that there is a prejudice, and which means prejudge, right, with anyone who is good looking, whether it's a guy or a gal, I would imagine, right? And so,
Yes.
what do they say in presidential elections? It's usually the taller candidate that is, so human nature is human nature. We may disagree that something's right or wrong, but reality is reality. We can always work to try to fix things and make them better, but things are as they are. So I can't tell you what the situation is, Joe, only that I suspect just from some of the questions you've asked that you probably provide a lot of value to people's lives, and you're probably very good at what you do. And I would go with that is why you're hired. Now, you can also take that and in a position that you are in, can utilize that position in order further, further bringing on other people who may not have that same advantage, if that's an advantage you feel. So again, I can't give an answer to that, as much as just focus on the value you provide, rather than the guilt, because one serves you and the other doesn't.
Honestly, Bob, I really think this is really nice of her to even feel that way. Honestly,
Hmm.
from my stance.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think, again, I can tell just from the back and forths with Joe through this live chat that she's a caring person. That she obviously has a
Yes.
lot of heart, and I can tell that from a lot of the people who've made comments. So, I think I think you attract, probably, Margaret, those kinds of people into your world because you're that kind of person. So,
Well, I thank you for
and
saying
as
that, and I hope to attract more.
and Layla just said, we all have biases. When you know about it, you can work on it. So that's true. And remember, the different biases that we have, and you can do a search for cognitive biases, okay? And do an online search, and you'll see how many biases. There are like 200 different named biases, cognitive biases. And we are typically not aware of what they are. And unless again, it goes back to something I had said earlier, unless you're aware of the issue, you're not in a position to be able to do something about it. The best thing we can do, the very best thing we can do, is get so conscious, get so aware of ourselves and of our world, that we're able to, again, question our premises. We're able to say, is this a bias? Is this a cognitive bias? Is this uh and you can name, any one of them. So again, the book Living Untethered by Michael A. Singer, he gets a lot into this. In fact, he talks about this an awful lot. Living Untethered by Michael A. Singer is a great book to begin with, as far as that.
Can you give us a couple of examples of these cognitive biases?
Sure. Well, confirmation bias, yeah, that's when you have a certain viewpoint about a thing, and when new information comes in that supports your already held belief system, you accept it, okay? But when information comes in that goes against it, you dismiss it. We see this all the time. Just watch a political conversation,
Okay.
and you'll see it all the time. Yeah. So those are the various kinds of cognitive bias. There's the recency bias, and that is the last thing we have seen. We tend to give that the most. So let's say you're in a buying situation, and there's five people who've just there's five people who presented. You're going to tend to remember more and give more value to the last person who spoke, the one who's more recent. Now, there's also something
Mhm.
called a primacy bias, and that is the first person who spoke. So what that means is, in these group of presentations, you want to, if there's going to be five people presenting, you want to go either first or last, because either the primacy bias or the recency bias is going to come in. So there's so many. There's another great book, um, called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, which also talks about the various biases that we have, the unconscious biases. And again, the key is, we basically don't even know that we have them. That's the key to remember. And so it's only by, whenever you're going to do anything, make a certain actions, make a decision, whatever it happens to be. If you feel yourself getting defensive about something that someone says that kind of doesn't agree with you, check your premises. Ask if you're looking at this logically, which you, by the way, think you are, just like I think I am, right? But let's question it and say, but what if I'm not? What if this is confirmation bias? What if it's cognitive dissonance? When I believe very strong, that's another kind of bias. When you believe in something, you believe this person is just the greatest, most wonderful, amazing person, and then you hear information in such a way that it's been proven that this person is not what you think they are. Well, you have a few choices. You can just ignore what you just heard and think the same thing. You're not living in reality, but you feel okay, right? Or you you take in that information and you ignore it anyway, even though you know that it's true. Now, in this case, this dissonance is very uncomfortable because you know you're buying into a lie. Or you take this information, which again is proven to be true, and you adjust your original thinking about this person. It's uncomfortable, but you're living in reality and you're in more of a position to act accordingly. So those are just a few examples of biases.
This is really, really amazing. And as you talk about all these different biases, we see them play out in the political landscape, in
Oh,
the organizations which we work, and in the relationships we have with our family, friends, and community.
yeah, always. It's always happening. The only question is, are we aware of it, or are we not aware of it? I mean, are we unconscious? That's the only difference. They're always happening constantly.
Absolutely. And I think this is one of the reasons for the exhaustion and for the stress that we are feeling as well, because we internalize all of these things.
Sure. Oh yeah.
So there's a Joe said, I have that one, but haven't read it.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. Well, thank you. This has been just wonderful. I have so enjoyed being with all of you. Margaret, I'm so glad we connected.
Yes, yes, because we talk about a lot of the same things, and you have been a fan of mine forever. I have your book on my Kindle.
Oh. And by the way, I'll just say in closing that you were so kind and gracious. I had totally missed a call that we had set up, and this does not happen to me. I have things timed up. I make sure, but I just missed a call with her, and she was so kind and so gracious and so wonderful. I felt so badly, but she just went out of her way to make me feel okay about it, and I just appreciated that so much. That speaks so highly of you.
Thank you so much, Bob, and I'm honored for this relationship that we're cultivating, and I hope that we can have future conversations.
That would be lovely. I would appreciate that. And thank you to everybody who has been with us today. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your questions and just being with us.
And I'll put all your contact information, Bob, in the and when I publish this. Thank you so much again.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you all. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.